Welcome to all new episode of All Around, and this one was a thriller as uh, George Mason put together uh, a comeback win for the ages, man, to notch their 21st victory of the season as they come back from 16 down to defeat St. Joseph 58-57. Um, Before we get started, of course, make sure you get over to Oohs and Ahs, the best soul food restaurant in the DMV. There are multiple locations, two in DC, one now in Virginia. That's a carry out only. Um, if you're in town for the game, like St. Joe's, and if you're coming from Philly to watch the big game against George, maybe you staying over, go visit Oohs and Ahs, man. Uh, Drown your sorrows with some food before you head back up the road tomorrow or whatnot, man. Um, with that being said, man, hell of a game. Uh, Obviously, with George Mason being in first place in the A10, a lot of teams gonna come at him. They're gonna come at him hard. They try to knock him off the top. They try to knock him off the pedestal. Meanwhile, trying to get on that pedestal, so to speak, at the current time. Give credit to St. Joseph's. They came out ridiculously physical, and George Mason, it just caught them all bound. You could just tell it just had them all over the place, just dazed and confused, like in a heavyweight fight. Um, they didn't know how to answer the call. It was just a combination of things. Uh, George Mason couldn't get anything going um, offensively, and that was a byproduct of the physicality from St. Joe's getting up in them, limiting them to one shot, getting a rebound, turning them over. The inside presence of uh, Agigable, and Finkley and Rasheer Fleming, who's an NBA prospect. There's some big boys down there, and they're not just big and stiff; they're big and athletic. So you have to be able to. You got to worry about them when you go in the paint. And obviously, for guards like to live in the paint. It creates open shots. It collapses the defenses, and you can kind of pick them apart if you make the right reads. And that wasn't the case in the first half. For the majority of the first half, St. Joe's, uh, they defended well and they got any shot they wanted. Their guards, led by Xzayvier Brown, he had coming off screens, Algebor, Finkley, and Fleming. He had a lot of daylight. He made George Mason pay. Um, he had 12 points in the first half and 4-7 shooting, 3 or 4 from the line, 1 or 2 from deep. If he wasn't hitting them, he found Erik Reynolds, who hit a couple shots and one from deep, and then Rasheer Fleming. He 3 or 4 from deep in the first half. They torched him. You know what I'm saying? From deep, 7 or 12 St. Joe's from deep, and that's just uncharacteristic of a George Mason defense. The top 10 defense in the country, they don't give you anything. And in the first half, St. Joe's pretty much got whatever they want. They jumped out to a 20-16 lead with 6:03 left. Before George Mason kind of settled in and began to play their type of game. And from that point on, it was a dogfight. Uh, George Mason, clawed their way back to try to generate some offense. It started with Jalen Haynes, and I'm gonna get more to him. He found some cracks in there to get a few lay-ins. Darian Maddox hit some tough shots in the first half. KD Johnson gave him some energy off the bench to just keep them close enough. And with that being said, at the half, they trailed 37-26, George Mason did. And from then on, second half, it was a totally different story. And at the end of the first half, let me go back to the first half to reiterate how hot St. Joe's was and how much they just had George Mason on the hill. St. Joe's shot 50% from the field in the first half, 58% from three-point range. And they were 4-6 from the free throw line. You don't see that against the George Mason defense this season. You know, teams don't shoot anywhere close to 50%. That's just an anomaly, man. With that being said, the second half, things changed drastically. And it was sparked by determined Jalen Haynes and the defensive pressure of one Jared Billups leading the way on that end. Jalen Haynes, man, he just wouldn't be denied. I think he figured out rather quickly that as he does most nights, he has tools within his game that makes him the ultimate mismatch for bigs. If you put a bigger guy on him, he's too quick for him, too shifty. Great footwork, handle, can finish with either hand, and he draws fouls because he's a big body. And if you put a wiry big who's athletic and quick enough to stay with him, they don't have the bulk to deal with him. And that's what St. Joe's kind of found to be difficult to try to slow him down once he got going in the second half. Like I said, Jalen Haynes had 6 points at halftime. That didn't last too long. And then in the second half, he went off, man. Put together a hell of a performance, man. Scored 16 points in the second half. And he mounted their comeback, man. They started the second half down 37-28. With Jalen Haynes leading the way, he literally sparked a 10-0 run from George Mason. And he scored 8 of those points. And it was on after that. You know what I mean? And at the 15-12 mark, he hits the go-ahead layup to put George Mason up, 38-37. They hadn't had the lead since the beginning of the game. And that goes to show you just how dominant he was to in a sense return the favor to St. Joe's. And meanwhile, while he's going to work, he's putting fouls on the entire front line. And it's nothing they could do. They can't stop him. They can't slow him down. He's making his free throws, and that's the thing about him. If he makes his free throws, you got to double him once he gets going. If he makes his free throws, he's pretty much unstoppable because he's hard to keep out on the perimeter because he can handle the ball. Quickness, he has a lot of moves. He's shifty, like I said, off the bounce for a big, and he can also pass. You know, he had a beautiful pass, I believe, to KD Johnson, who went back door and laid it in in the second half to keep George Mason on the front. Then as George Mason at the 15-12 mark got their first lead since the start of the game, 38-37, naturally, St. Joe's came back with a run as most good teams do. And they came back with a run of their own, went on an 8-0 run to regain the lead, 45-38 with 13:23 left after Erik Reynolds' three-point jumper. 3-point make. After that, it was just a defensive battle. No team could get scored. And then George Mason, Justin Big came in, made a couple free throws, and from there it was a dogfight all the way to the end. But George Mason defense, once again, with St. Joe's leading 49-41, George Mason defense went to another level, led by arguably the best defensive player in the A10, Jared Billups. It was a total team effort, but Jared Billups really was the one. He was the head of the snake because he got on Brown and Erik Reynolds and kept them at bay, so they couldn't get paint touches. He ripped them a couple times. They couldn't get clean shots, and he neutralized them, which made it hard for St. Joe's, to have that balanced attack that they had in the first half with their bigs. And the inside and out attack, if their bigs wasn't finishing inside off of offensive putbacks or dump offs or whatnot, rolling to the basket or lobs or whatnot, they was kicking it out, and St. Joe's was hitting threes. But with Jared Billups out there, he neutralized all that. He didn't allow them to get going from the guard spot. And after trailing 49-41 at the 8-27 mark, George Mason went on that 8-0 run. 10-0 run to take the lead, 51-49 to 4:43 mark by, again, a layup from Jalen Haynes. See what I mean? Common theme in the second half. He was dominant. From then on, Erik Reynolds came back with a three-pointer to retake the lead for St. Joe's, 52-51 at the 4:19 mark. But after that, it was all George Mason. They built a strong lead. St. Joe's, again, got a three-point shot from Xzayvier Brown. He got loose, hit a tough shot over Jared Billups late, 57-51. 57-56 with 135 left in the game. But Braden O'Connor gets fouled. We're going to he shooting the jumper. And then that was all she wrote. Well, he didn't get fouled. He hit a runner with 118 left. And then from there, neither team scored again. And that was George Mason just getting a clamp, including late in the game where they got a big stop where St. Joe's actually had a chance to try to either take the lead or win it. And George Mason, they got the stop. They got the stop, man. It was just for a half. It was just beautiful basketball of execution on both ends that allowed George Mason to do enough, make enough plays to pull out the win, man. When you're a good team and you're on the streak that they are on, and you're starting to understand that this could be a special season. Normally, if you go through the history of the game, normally you'll see these type of teams have to win these type of games where they're pushed to the limit to really not necessarily prove to everybody else, but prove something to themselves that we are that good and we are legit. And I think this was the game for them to propel them to let them know, like, y'all really have a chance to do something special this season, which is make it to the tournament for the first time since they've been in the A10. I believe the first time since 2011, I believe, for the program period. And also do some damage in the tournament. Don't just get there just to be happy to get there. Do some damage and win some games and really solidify this program as, we one of the best in the country once again. And they're capable of doing that, man. In the second half, it was flipped. Like I said, in the first half, how St. Joe shot 50% from the field, 58 from deep. Second half, it was George Mason's turn. George Mason in the second half, he shot 45% from the field. Didn't even need 3 points. They went 1 for 4 from three, and that one was a big 3-pointer from Jared Billups to tie the game 49 late in the second half. But they really didn't need the 3-pointers. From the free throw line, they were living at the free throw line thanks to Jalen Haynes' dominance. They were 13-17 from the free throw line, 76%, and they shot 45% from the field. Jalen Haynes, man, he finished 6 and 9 from the free throw. A guy that came in shooting in the high 50% range, finished 6 and 9, which was big. Woody Newton was 2 for 4. Braden O'Connor was 4 for 4, including some clutch free throws down the stretch. And Justin Begg was 2 for 2. So they didn't beat themselves in the second half, so to speak, from the line. And they held St. Joe's to 33% shooting from the field in the second half and 27% shooting from deep, which is a complete turnaround from shooting 58% in the first half, which got them the big lead. Not only did they hold them down from the field overall, they pretty much took away the 3-point shooting. And that's what you have, man. You have a hell of a win, hell of a comeback win. It's their 21st win of the season, 21-5, 11 straight wins. It was 12-1 in the conference now. Just a hell of a showing, man. Hell of a gutsy, tough comeback win, man. And this should put everybody on notice that not even just in the A10, just in the country, that they're for real. And that's what you want to do if you're a competitor and a player, man. So those guys, they came through when they had to, man. George Mason outscored St. Joe's 36-20 in the paint. Against that formidable front line that St. Joe's had, they won the rebounding battle 31-26, which was huge, man. You gotta win. If you can't beat St. Joe's, if you don't win the battle on the boards, they're gonna eat you up. Those bigs they're gonna beat you themselves. So By them winning the rebounding battle, that limited second chance points. St. Joe's were limited to 10, which is big for any opponent because normally they get a lot more points from that, from second chance points, from rebounding and stuff like that. And it just and as many turnovers as they had, I believe they had 8 turnovers in the first half. If I'm not mistaken, let me double check. Yes, they did. George Mason had 8 turnovers in the first half. They finished with 11. So not only was Jalen Haynes getting it after it, not only were they did their defense elevate, they didn't beat themselves by turning the ball over. They didn't give St. Joe's second chances, second more possessions, more opportunities to score and beat them. And that was a quiet but huge factor in them coming back to win by 1, man. So you got to tip your hat to George Mason. Hell of a win, gutsy win, tough win. Excellent job with adjustments from the coaching staff, especially with how they got rocked at the beginning of the game in the first half. And it sets things up. It sets things up for a heavyweight battle next week. I believe next Thursday, as they take on second place VCU, who's a game behind them. And they're very talented. I saw them play against GW. They're athletic. They're deep. They have guys that can kill you from the outside, they can kill you from the inside, lob threats, and it's in their building. So another test, and it's a lot at stake. I believe the A-10 is good enough to have 2 teams get bids to play in the NCAA tournament. And those teams obviously are George Mason and VCU, but you don't want to leave it in the hands of a committee and decision makers. We all know, man, look, as much as it sucks, and I hate using it as kind of like excuse or whatnot, politics do play a role, and viewership and money and all this other stuff do factor in. It's not just the basketball, unfortunately, which should be the case, winning and the quality of basketball that you're playing. I believe the A-10 is deserving of 2 teams minimum, but with how things have gone in recent years, more than likely this game, the winner, will determine who gets the nod out of the A-10 and be in the NCAA tournament. You have your destiny in your hands. All you gotta do is go to Richmond if you're George Mason and pick up that win. You pick up the win. That's 22 wins. You're 13-1 in the conference. That's 12 straight wins. They can't deny you. You got to get in the tournament. Even if let's say you get to the conference tournament and you don't have a good showing, you go out in the first game, you play the second game, because more than likely they're getting a double bye. They should still be able to get you in because of your dominance in the regular season. At the end of the day, it's about winning. And if you're winning, you can't argue that. That's why winning will always be most important, man. So with that being said, man, I appreciate y'all for joining me for another episode of All Around, man. Hell of a game, fun game. George Mason, once again, win. I go St. Joe's 58-57. I'll be back with another episode of All Around soon. Appreciate you guys for joining me.